sometimes the silence of God feels louder than any storm. You've prayed, you've obeyed, you've trusted, and yet nothing changes. You look around and wonder, has God forgotten me? But what if that silence isn't abandonment? What if it's preparation? In Genesis 40, Joseph sits in a prison, forgotten by men, but not by God. And through that waiting, that loneliness, God is weaving a greater purpose than Joseph could ever imagine. There are moments in every believer's life when the heavens feel like brass, when prayers echo back empty, when obedience leads not to blessing, but to more hardship. And in those moments, we find ourselves asking the same question Joseph must have asked in that cold stone floor of that prison. Lord, where are you? Joseph's story in Genesis 40 is one of divine silence, but also of divine presence. Because though the world forgot him, heaven did not. When Genesis 40 opens, Joseph is not the favored son with the colorful robe anymore. He's a forgotten slave, wrongfully imprisoned, falsely accused, stripped of his dignity, yet still walking with integrity. The text in Genesis 39:21 says, "But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison." Even in chains, Joseph's faithfulness shines. He doesn't let bitterness define him. He serves. He doesn't let despair harden him. He listens. Two men, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, are thrown into the same prison. And one night, both have troubling dreams. Joseph notices their sadness and asks, "Why are your faces downcast today?" Even in his own suffering, Joseph's heart remains others focused. That's remarkable, because hardship often makes us self-absorbed. Yet Joseph's empathy becomes the channel through which God begins to move again. Tim Keller once said, "Suffering can refine you or destroy you, but it will never leave you the same." Joseph allows it to refine him. Joseph interprets the cupbearer's dream and the baker's correctly. And after sharing the interpretation, Joseph pleads, "But when it goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison." You can almost hear the desperation, the yearning for freedom, the longing for justice. He's not immune to pain. He's human. But verse 23 hits like a hammer. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. Forgotten. And yet, in heaven, Joseph's name was still known. R.C. Sproul once wrote, "There is no maverick molecule in the universe. If God is sovereign, then every tear that falls has purpose." God had not forgotten Joseph. He was simply preparing him and Egypt for redemption. In many ways, this chapter mirrors the emotional depth of Psalm 13, where David cries out, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" David too knew what it meant to feel forgotten. But he ends the psalm by declaring, "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation." Faith doesn't deny the pain. It redefines it through trust. There's something sacred about waiting. We hate it, but God uses it. Waiting strips away illusion. It tests faith. It deepens character. Charles Spurgeon once said, "The Lord gets his best soldiers out of the highlands of affliction." Joseph's waiting wasn't wasted time. It was time for formation. When he finally stands before Pharaoh, his humility, wisdom, and faith are unshakable, forged in the fire of silence. We see the pattern throughout Scripture. Moses waited for 40 years in the desert. David hid in caves before wearing the crown. Even Christ himself waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. God is never late. He is always exact. A.W. Tozer wrote, "It is doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply." That's not cruelty. That's love that refines. In God's hands, even the dungeon becomes the doorway to destiny. When we reach the end of Genesis 40, it feels unfinished. Joseph remains in prison. The curtain closes on silence. But Genesis 41 opens with 3 words that change everything. When 2 full years had passed. 2 years! That's 730 days of wondering, waiting, and questioning. And yet, at the exact right time, Pharaoh's dreams and the forgotten Hebrew become the instrument of Egypt's salvation. Vadi Bakum once said, "God is not reacting to our story. We are walking inside His." Joseph wasn't forgotten. He was simply being positioned. Maybe today you feel forgotten. Your prayers seem unanswered. Your situation feels unchanging. But take heart. Your story is not over. The same God who was with Joseph in the pit, in Potiphar's house, and in the prison is with you now. He's weaving redemption even when we can't see the thread. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." Perhaps your pain is not a sign of abandonment, but of preparation. When Joseph's story ends, he will say to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." That's the anthem of every believer who has ever felt forgotten. Because the God who sees the sparrow fall has never once lost sight of you. So if you find yourself in a season of silence, trust that the author is still writing. He may be silent, but he is never absent. You may be forgotten by men, but you are never forsaken by God. May God keep you and bless you.